So earlier we talked about scheduling time for the work that we love, and a lot of us in the room are already using Wednesdays as the time for our creation, time to be creative. So, I was doing my work, and like falling in love, all I could think about was Wednesday. I had to go 6 whole days to see Wednesday again, so I was like, wow. Why am I only doing what I love 1 day a week? So this was rolling in my mind. But, the reality is but I have to pay my bills, right? And that balance again. So the inevitable happened, tax preparation. Ugh. So I'll tell you, I'm not the queen of organization, but I do have a very sophisticated methodology for calculating my taxes. And this year, I was using the back of 3 unopened envelopes because I'm also not a big fan of mail. That's not like a handwritten letter. So on these 3 envelopes, I wrote all my newspaper jobs, newspaper, date, and rate. And so that's where I had my foundation. It was newspaper work. So that's what I was mostly doing, and what I did still enjoy doing. And then so I had 1 envelope that really quickly filled up, and then to the second envelope, spilled onto the second envelope, and then my third envelope was like what I'll refer to as like my corporate work, which was probably only 6 or 7 jobs in that year. This could be like a conference or corporate portraits or an embassy event because I lived in DC. So it was a lot less visually interesting work, but it paid at a higher rate quicker. So that was really interesting to me because it made me think about how valuable is my time and what do I want to use my time for. Because if I wanted to do just newspaper work, then I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. But what was most important for me was to buy myself time to work on the projects that I loved. So we're gonna, again, a little bit of math, using the median household income from 2017 as an example of $60,000. So this is what I was finding for my work. And while newspaper assignments you might fill in the blank with whatever work that you do, portrait assignments, family portraits, corporate portraits, but this was just my personal experience. So to use that example of $60,000, if you needed to make $5,000 a month, for me, so like kind of the average-ish newspaper rate at the time was $200, and that could be for a full day, or most of the time was for a full day, 8 hours a day. So that's about 25 days and up to 200 hours per month. So in a year, that's 300 days of work. And in a year, that's 2,400 hours per year. So my corporate work, to make the same amount of money, 5,000 divided by 200, 25 hours, because I'd require a 4-hour minimum, because I would find that's what most events lasted 4 hours, and I'll talk more about that, time of arrival to time of departure. So if you divide 25 hours by 4, that's 6.25 days. So 6.25 days of work and 25 hours a month. And like, if you haven't had coffee, you're just like, ugh, that's a lot of numbers, right? So in a year, that's 75 days per year and 300 hours. So let's put these next to each other, right? So 300 days of work and 2,400 hours. 75 days of work and 300 hours. Okay, so you can forget everything I just said and just look at the difference, okay? 225 days and 2,100 hours. When you're like, where am I gonna find my free time? There, it was right there. So for me, when I wanted to buy myself time to work on my projects, and at that point in my career, I had to make a compromise. So if I did all the newspaper jobs, and even if I got hired 300 days from a newspaper, like I'd be so fortunate because that's a lot of days to be hired, I had to make some compromises. So I wanted to take more of this kind of work so that I could have time to do what I loved. So this budgeting exercise was invaluable to me because, time is important. And then while doing this budgeting exercise, I thought about like how I used to quote a job, and it was like my flat rate. And I thought about all the things that get lost in the flat rate, all the things that you don't get paid for in the flat rate. So I started line iteming. My creative fee was one line. That is what I get paid per hour for my unique skill set and the amount of hours that I do it, time of arrival to time of departure. Just because you show up early and you stay late is not just because you're like, hey, I'm here. It's because that's what's expected of you to put your client at ease and to know that you didn't miss a picture. So you should be paid for your time. Post-production fee, like that takes a lot of time, right? And I was just putting it in a flat rate. So and your hourly rate, and the way that I calculated it, and is just the way that I do it, was half of the creative fee. And so I would usually find that in a 4-hour job, if it needed to be, edited, a selection of images made, toned, and depending on the length of captions, it could be like 2 hours of post-production per 4 hours, probably 1 to 2 hours of post-production for 4 hours of shooting. Rental equipment. So if somebody wanted to take portraits, I didn't own lights, so I had to rent lights. I shouldn't have to charge for that, so I charged a client for the rental of lights. Even if you're a portrait photographer and you have your own lights, you should probably be able to charge some kind of lighting fee to help you repay yourself for your kit. Assistant fee. Like, does this job require extra assistance? And if so, you should charge for it. So if they're doing a set of corporate portraits and you have a backdrop and you have lighting that needs to be adjusted, and you're going to do 20 portraits in a row, you want someone to help make sure everyone's clothing's right, like charge. Don't make it harder on yourself. Put it in the invoice and pitch it. They could say, well, we don't need an assistant, right? But at least you're putting it out there at first. A lot of clients like to have a gallery that they can share with the participants of the event. So say you shot a conference and, these are probably pictures that you're not going to use in your own portfolio. But like I use Photo Shelter, and I'd upload a online gallery, create a private link, and then send it to the client. And then that client could share the link with the participants. And then within Photo Shelter you could set the price of printing photos. So they'll print the photos, different sizes, and they'll do the shipping. So I loved it because it wasn't extra work for me, but it was also another stream of revenue that was pretty passive. I just put it up there. If you want pictures, order them yourself and they'll come to you. So I thought that was a great feature of Photo Shelter. Rush fee. Have you ever gone to the post office and you're like, hey, I need this sent overnight. And they're like, okay, no problem, we're going to charge you regular rate. No, they're like, do you want priority or do you want express? Because there's 2 different charges. There's like slow mail, and then there's the rush fee. So sometimes your client wants, like, we need these pictures yesterday, right? And so you should be able to charge a rush fee to put all those important things in your life on hold so that you can rush the job. Courier fee. So this was an interesting one. I had a client who asked me to put my images on a CD. Yeah, that's dating back. Yeah, and they wanted. They said, we really need to have the CD today. Can you send a courier over? This is Washington, D.C., and I'm like, sure, I can send a courier. And then I'm like looking up, like, how much does a courier cost? And it was like $50 to $75. And it was like 10 minutes down the road. And I was like, I'm not doing anything today. I'm putting on my coat. I'll be the courier. And so I put that into my invoice. It cost me, they were going to pay a courier $50 to $75. Why not just put it in my pocket? And I delivered the CD to the desk, to the receptionist, and boom, so creativity, it's found everywhere. So my question is to you, if you had all the money in the world and all the time in the world, what would you dedicate yourself to? And then think about it, really. Do you need all the time in the world? Do you need all the money in the world to start right now?